We are joined from the Golf Channel by a guy who's covering a very interesting sport at the present moment as we head toward the U.S. Open this week. Rex Hoggard is our guest. Rex, you live this on a daily basis, man. I cover the NFL for a living, so I see the headlines. I see everything that's taken place over the last week or two here. On the inside, when you're talking to people, is the entire situation with the PGA and LIV and the uncertainty as much of a gong show as it appears to those of us on the outside?
When you said I covered an interesting sport, I would love just to cover the actual sport. That becomes difficult. Gong show is a good way of putting it. I think I'm going to steal that line. I do like that.
It's all yours.
I mean, the agreement that was announced last week, and I have had to admit this now a couple times in different interviews, and as best I can tell, there were 5 people in the world that knew this was happening before last Tuesday. And that puts me in a unique position because they actually put insider under my name on my title. And you can't imagine how unbelievably embarrassing it is to have that on your title and have no idea something like this is going to happen, because no one knew this was going to happen. Like I said, there were 5 people: the commissioner, the governor of the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, a couple of hand-selected lieutenants. And it's interesting being here at the LA Open. I mean, I'm sorry, at Los Angeles Country Club, and hearing players getting asked about what this means and what the future looks like. And there's absolutely zero answers. It's a complete void of information. It's a fascinating time.
I got to imagine, and I know this has been discussed, but if I'm a PGA player, if I'm Rory McIlroy, and I got to tee off with Brooks Koepka, regardless of what our relationship is away from golf. But if I'm staring at this guy who went and took $100-odd million from the Saudis and went there amidst all the controversy, and I'm Rory and I stuck around, there is nothing that anyone can say to me that makes me feel good about this or even understands how this could happen. Like, wasn't this almost the exact complaint that the LIV golfers raised, which was they have no say, they're not making the money from the PGA, they've got no say in how the tour is run, and here we are on the back end of it, you've merged, and the guys who actually stuck around end up on the short end of the stick for the exact reasons that the guys who left cited for exiting when they did.
I think we're seeing that level of frustration. You're absolutely right. Rory McIlroy, who has been the best soldier that Jay Monahan, the commissioner of the PGA Tour, could have ever wanted. He was an outspoken proponent. He was overly critical of LIV Golf. He drew the line. He did the famous line, "I want to be on the right side of history." He's gone virtually radio silent, and I understand why. He canceled his press conference this week at the U.S. Open. Even the last few weeks, he has become reserved. You could tell, I don't think he knew this was coming, but he had an idea that something was in the mix. Look at the other side of it. John Rahm just spoke with the media today at LACC. And he had been a very loyal PGA Tour supporter, and he said the right things, but one of the lines that stood out was, "I want to believe our leaders are doing what's right for us, but it's hard to do that right now."
How is Jay Monahan still the commissioner?
I think, I've been asked this a couple times, and I hate doing this guy should get fired, because it seems that you always do that about coaches and managers. In this particular case, it's a legitimate question, and not because of any performance issues. We can argue that did he do a good job, did he not do a good job? I mean, everyone's going to have their opinions. My bigger concern is, how does he still have a job based on the idea that you have spent the last year being very, very critical of someone who now sits in a boardroom next to you? I don't know how that dynamic works. And
moving forward, like how do you have confidence? Because, again, I read that letter that he sent to the players that, to me, just – and again, I'm on the outside of this, man. You live this every day, but like the tone of it seems so completely off. It was like this great celebration of the PGA, and this is a great thing. There was no like, "Hey guys, I really messed up. I know you're going to be furious at me." It was like, "Hey, come on over. Let's have a little conversation over there." I really have a lot of questions. And even if somewhere down the line, I know there's been references to some type of a pot or a pool for the players who didn't go to LIV and they can make money, like a revenue sharing type of thing, and the LIV golfers can't. There's no way you can get that money back. Even setting aside like time value of money and investments, there's no way these guys are ever going to make up the money. And I don't know that is there a world where the Rory McIlroys of the world can refuse to play until there's an equitable solution to this? That might be, good money after bad money type of a situation. I just don't know how you do what Jay Monahan and the PGA seems to be wanting the players to do, which is just, hey, guys, we know you're kind of mad about this, but we got to move forward. How about that U.S. Open? Let's go play.
No, and look, I've been doing this for a lot of years, and I've heard whispers of a union, and certainly those whispers have become shouts. And that was certainly the case last Tuesday when the commissioner met with players right after this announcement. And there was anger, there was confusion, there was probably a little bit of betrayal in that room. I think there's two parts of this equation. Well, there's kind of three parts. But one is what this actual new entity is going to look like, and we have no idea. There's a huge void of information right now. The other two parts that are most interesting to me right now is, one, how do those players who you just mentioned stay loyal to the PGA Tour? How do they get made whole? And that's a line that's being thrown out there now, like this is a Sopranos episode or Goodfellas movie. Like, it's amazing that they're using that so freely right now. That's money, and it's a lot of money. But given the fact that the PGA Tour is now partners with the Public Investment Fund, which it all feels like, monopoly money to them, I don't know if that's the bigger issue than the second issue, which is how do the players who join LIV Golf come back? What does that path look like? Because I think that's going to be a harder road.
I'll tell you, the path that it looks like is they drive in their Rolls Royce and dripping money out of all their pockets. I mean, they're the guys who won in my mind. Now, I understand just the interpersonal dynamics of it are awkward. And even the PGA that, when the golfers originally joined LIV, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Rex, but they basically, immediately got the letter that, hey, if you play in any events, you were barred from these PGA Tour events. And there were questions about could they even come back and play in majors. That obviously ended up getting resolved on most fronts here. I don't know that there's a lot of shame for the Bryson DeChambeaus of the world because, he won. He's got 100 million reasons to feel good about this. But, the fact that you've got maybe the two front men, Rory and Brooks, playing together, do we anticipate, are they okay in terms of as friends at this point, or is this going to be an ice storm out there in the opening round?
I mean, they didn't like each other before LIV Golf became a thing. Go back to the PGA Championship just a few years ago at Kiowa Island. I mean, we all saw that video, and we know that what the relationship is like. It's going to be frosty, but I think in what you're hearing from players is they're really, really good at compartmentalizing, and only because they've had to do it a lot lately, where there's a lot of outside noise, there's a lot of chatter, and when you show up here, if you're John Rahm or Rory or anyone else, you really need to focus on what's going to be a very, very difficult test. This golf course is going to be so demanding that every part of your game needs to be on. And as it applies to the LIV guys, it's not about if they want to come back. It's more about the administrative fact. The PGA Tour has to figure out a way to create a path that's going to be punishing. So there'll be fines, there'll be suspension, but it can't be punishing enough that let's say Phil Mickelson, for example, just won't want to do it. It's going to be a very fine line.
How's Phil, who's always he can be a pretty prickly personality when he likes. If there's certain types of questions, certain types of things, he can bristle at it. That's always been part of his persona. How does he come back to this? As really, I know Greg Norman was a big piece of this, but Phil, in a lot of ways, was kind of the face of this whole thing.
He was, and he got paid very, very well for it. And I don't know, to answer your question, I don't know that he does come back. It's interesting. I talked to two players just last week, on Tuesday when this was all sort of breaking, and I asked both of them, do you even want to come back to the PGA Tour? And the answer from both was, I don't know. And look, they have gotten comfortable with the lifestyle, playing 14 events a year, 54 holes, short pants, music, shotgun starts, big money, everything that went into it. So now you're asking them, okay, now you're going to have to change your lifestyle and go back to all the things you said you wanted to get away from. It's not an easy choice for any of these guys. And when it comes to Phil specifically, at his age, does he really want to come back and put up with whatever it is he's going to have to put up with?
Rex Hoggard from Golf Channel is our guest. I'm going to give you your dream here, Rex. I'm going to give you 5 minutes just to talk about the actual golf, because we do have a major being played right down the street from us at LA Country Club this week. Obviously, the drama is going to be a big piece of it, but just tell me about this tournament, this course, and the guys in it. What are you expecting this week?
Oh, 5 minutes. This is so much better than what I get on the Golf Channel. Here we go.
Go. It's all yours. Time is yours.
I'm going to go straight to the golf course, and I usually don't do that because it's an inanimate object, and I don't feel like they tell very good stories most of the time. But LACC is going to be so interesting because we've never been here, and I think there's something magical about the idea. And I don't know if you're here in LA. You're driving down Wilshire, and you're in the middle of Beverly Hills, and suddenly you take a right, and you're in the middle of this unbelievable golf course. It's sort of just this anomaly, right? It's this emerald green thing that's in the middle of this great city. And what the players are going to experience is probably not an Open that they've faced, certainly in my lifetime, because it's going to be hard, it's going to be fast, it's Bermuda rough. Everything around the greens is going to be challenging. I was just talking with a stats guy about it's a second shot golf course. He said it actually reminds him a lot of Augusta, that the fairways are a lot wider than what you've come to expect at a U.S. Open. Now, you do still have to drive the ball relatively straight, but this will be all about on the greens. And given the USGA's history, there's a chance that they go over the top. And come Sunday, you and I are having a conversation about how did they lose this golf course, and which is fascinating given where we are in the game right now. But if they can maintain control and sort of control themselves, it's going to be such a unique test, because it's going to be the heart of this golf course is a 5-par 3. One of them can play up to 300 yards and one can play 97 yards. I mean, so you have this wonderful dichotomy between all of it. I think it's going to be a fun test, and I think what you're going to end up with is a leaderboard of all the cast of characters that we love to watch. I'm sure Brooks will be in the mix come Sunday. I would imagine John Rahm is going to be in the mix. Scotty Scheffler, who is hitting the ball better than anyone in the game right now. If he can just putt just a little bit below average, he's going to be right there in the mix. I think it's really going to identify a unique champion.
And that, brings me back. Sorry, I gave you 2 minutes there, but we're going to go back to one more question on this. Is there on some level, as much of a complete mess as this entire thing is, like, as a casual golf fan, on some level, like, I almost want to tune in for the drama. Is there any chance on the back end of this, not financially, because that's a whole other train wreck we can talk about on a side subject, but is there a possibility from a pure ratings standpoint and anticipation from the PGA folks that this might actually, the drama of it, the chaos of it, might do well?
I think we learned at Augusta, and Augusta kind of normalized everything in this, but I think we all learned that it was whatever was going on in pro golf between LIV Golf and the PGA Tour, it was only going to make the majors better, because in the world that we lived in just a week ago, you only got the absolute best fields of the year 4 times a year now, because you had those players who left to go to LIV who could still compete. They proved it. They proved it at the Masters. Certainly Brooks proved it at the PGA. And then it was only going to make these events that much better. Now you sort of add the subtext to whatever the future's going to look like. You add a little bit of it, more animosity that, as you pointed out, the Rory McIlroys of the world probably don't like what they're seeing in the mirror right now. That, man, I thought I made what was a good decision, and now I completely got hosed in it. So there is that drama, whether if the guys want to talk about it or admit it or not.
So who you got this week, Rex? You got your leaderboard. If you want to name one, you want to name 3. I know you named some of the big names, but who do you think, or who's a sleeper maybe too that you think could end up in the mix here?
I don't think you could ignore Brooks. I mean, he's on one of those runs. He was just talking with the media. He sounded like the Brooks of old. And he's too cool for golf, and he everything about him just screams that he loves. And he said this a couple times. He loves the chaos, and that's what I feel like this week is going to be. We're already seeing it. It's on Tuesday, and we already have the chaos and sort of the dark horse. And I was talking to someone about this the other day, and Tyrrell Hatton, and it would be such an unbelievable story, because anyone who has watched Tyrrell Hatton play golf can immediately identify with, oh, that guy's insane. Like, he's just like me on the golf course. He yells at himself. He's hard at himself. He says things that other golfers don't. But he's playing so well. If you look at his results the last 2 months, he has been in and around the lead, and he just kind of fades away Sunday afternoon. I can't imagine how entertaining he would be on this golf course on Sunday if he's in the hunt.
Rex, this has been awesome, man. Really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.